Our favorite chuckly congressman from the great state, or Commonwealth of Kentucky. There he is, John Yarmuth. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Stephanie. So good to be back with you.
You have already tortured us with your unbelievably cute grandson whose birthday it is today.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can do it again.
Yeah,
There
we're
it
like,
is.
you got, you got to start making some money off that kid.
Right.
That is Hollywood pretty. You got to, I mean, don't let him slack around, for God's sakes.
Right, absolutely.
Congressman, your reaction to yesterday, because it was more powerful even than I expected. I mean, between the officers, and I have to say, Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, it was, and I know people were like, oh, they should have done that in the impeachment. They should have, I do feel like we saw a lot of this kind of footage in the impeachment, but I guess the testimony of the officers was really powerful. What did you think?
It was, and it was so human. And I mean, the emotion that was in their voices, aside from the compelling statements that they made, just in terms of the substance, what they had gone through, what their families had gone through, but the emotion that was still so ripe was, I think, made it incredibly powerful. And yes, I know that people on the right will want to discredit the whole effort and discredit Kinzinger and Cheney, but it's just basically hard to deny what happened there. And one of the things you said during the impeachment trial, we didn't have a lot of the video that we have now back during the impeachment trial. So that just keeps adding to the evidence of how brutal and how frightening this event was.
Yeah, I heard. I sometimes can't take the mainstream media. Both sides do it, kind of reporting, but they're like, well, Democrats rushed in last time, and maybe they didn't. They should have done it like that. It's like, first of all, you had no choice but to impeach when you did, because that's when it happened. And I mean, if you can't impeach over the overthrow the United States government in a violent terrorist attack on our Capitol, I don't know what impeachment is for. Do you?
Exactly, and we only had 2 weeks until he left office following the attack. So it would be arguable that which we tried to do anyway, but to impeach a former president. But again, he will and forever be. I hope he's the last one who is impeached twice. Yeah. But that's a stain on him forever.
Well, and Representative, speaking of lessons learned, I mean, I sure like the tone about subpoenas, that we're not going to go through this same thing that we go through every time. The House Select Committee said it isn't going to bother asking Trump officials nicely if they want to cooperate. Benny Thompson, the chair, said the committee will immediately start issuing subpoenas. He said he was wary of the stalling tactics frequently used by Trump administration officials. He said letters just lengthen the time. We just want to get it all done. He said they will be meeting with Merrick Garland soon to discuss getting access to all relevant data as well as evidence compiled by the impeachment investigators. But, I mean, we already probably know what we're going to hear, right, about why Trump can't testify. I mean, somebody's already compiled he will claim it's not legitimate. This is what Kevin McCarthy is setting up because, he wasn't allowed to put what members he wanted on it. He will claim subpoenaing Trump is just a PR stunt. This is what they've done in the past, right? Trump will claim executive privilege prevents him from testifying. And on and on. Though they say while Trump's lawyers claim the impeachment was unconstitutional because he was no longer president, they'll use the protection of the executive branch to hide him now from being subpoenaed, right? And they say it's unclear how that argument will go. Trump has already waived that privilege by speaking to several reporters for several books about him. It could also be argued his rally that day was political, not an official one as president. So what do you think is going to happen with all that?
And I think the Department of Justice yesterday said that there's no executive privilege for White House aides, which is an important step. Now, it doesn't mean they won't try to litigate it and drag it out, but they've lost the basis for refusing the subpoena. So, we'll see. I think at this point, this was why the Republicans didn't want the bipartisan independent commission, because they wanted something that they could try to discredit. And that was the strategy from day one. It's very, very cynical. It's, to me, un-American, undemocratic, but that's how they're driven these days. That's how they roll, and it's a shame. But I think Benny Thompson will be a terrific chairman and leader of this investigation. He's no nonsense, and the members on that committee, Adam Schiff is no nonsense. He's not a grandstander.
Yeah.
Jamie, they're all really solid members, and I think Adam and Liz are as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, based on even just yesterday, I would say Kevin McCarthy got badly outplayed by the speaker.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
So, okay. Well, that was, it was, and I'm just curious, like, what struck you the most from yesterday? Because everybody had it was a powerful, emotional day. What struck you most yesterday?
I think two things. The one officer who said he went home in the middle of the night and his wife wanted to hug him and he couldn't because of the chemicals in his uniform. And then the other gentleman standing up for his colleagues, that he was really angry and said
let's
this is
listen.
an insult to
Officer Gunnell, let's see that one you referred to. Yeah.
I arrived home at nearly 4 a.m. on January 7th. I had to push my wife away from me because she wanted to hug me. And I told her no, because of all the chemical that my uniform had on. Sorry.
Yeah, I don't know how it gets more personal and gripping than that.
Yeah. It was powerful. And I think you meant Officer Fanone. I guess we already did 11-12, Officer Fanone as well.
What makes the struggle harder and more painful is to know so many of my fellow citizens, including so many of the people I put my life at risk to defend, are downplaying or outright denying what people in this room. But too many are now telling me that hell doesn't exist, or that hell actually wasn't that bad. The indifference shown to my colleagues is disgraceful.
And we were saying, none of this should ever have been partisan representative, but he is a Republican. He's made clear he's a Republican. Officer Sicknick and his girlfriend, who has spoken out since then, voted for Trump. I mean, none of this should ever have been partisan, but here we are. Everything is. Trump didn't, lose the election. What happened on January 6th, COVID. I mean, it's just, I don't know how, I think of you often. I don't know how you operate every day. Just, we're not even debating one reality anymore.
It's very discouraging. I would say it's the bourbon that gets me through it, and that's partially true. But when I think back to that day and the few days that followed it, it wasn't partisan.
Yeah,
we were all in the same mental state at that point, Republicans and Democrats. We were all commiserating. We
saw the pictures of all of you huddling together. We saw the pictures of you barricaded all together and, helping each other put gas masks on. I mean, it's
exactly. And so for it to come to this point is very discouraging. And then, the guy like Andrew Clyde, who insisted it was a normal day of normal tourism day. If you hadn't seen the video, it would be like a normal tourism day. And then basically saying he's been misinterpreted. I don't know how you could misinterpret that. We heard the video.
Yeah, and you saw
audio, and that's what he said.
And you saw the pictures of him screaming, barricaded with men with guns protecting him. Oh,
exactly. It's bizarre.
Yeah.
It is bizarre world.
Congressman, let's talk about, because again, same party we're trying to deal with on everything. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell says no Republicans will vote to raise the debt ceiling. And you said Mitch doesn't care about our debt. He's so scared that Democrats are putting hardworking American families first that he's willing to tank our entire economy to stop us. I mean, boy, here we go again. Whether it's infrastructure or whatever, they just don't want Biden or Democrats to be perceived as accomplishing anything. And when they do, like COVID relief, they take credit for it even though they all voted against it. It is.
Mitch is taking credit. Well, first of all, he took credit for the 2017 tax cuts. Then he takes credit for the CARES Act and all the emergency funding. And he's even taken credit for some of the American Rescue Plan, which he and every Republican voted against. And then he's taking credit for running up things that ran up the debt, and now he won't pay his bills. And I said, basically, he's I guess Trump's business strategy is contagious, because now the Republicans have done the same thing. We'll borrow the money, but we don't want to pay it.
Well, and he apparently Trump's advice, just did a statement about don't do infrastructure deal. Where do we get a better result in 2022? So they're going to listen to him. So we're not. I mean, I don't know what you think what's going to happen on infrastructure, but they're listening to him not to do an infrastructure deal at all.
Well, maybe the primary election in Texas yesterday will change some of their mind and realize that he's not the
Trump back candidate lost in the primary in Texas yesterday. Yeah.
Exactly. And so maybe that'll turn some heads among the Republicans.
Well, and George P. Bush, throwing his whole family under the bus and sucking up to Trump, and he didn't get the Trump endorsement. I mean, it's
right.
Yeah.
Well, I hope that the Trump curse inflicts pain on Lieutenant Governor. Attorney General Paxton.
Yeah.
He's a disgrace to that profession too. But with infrastructure, I hope there is a bipartisan deal. But if there isn't, we're prepared to go it alone on the president's American Jobs Plan and do it through reconciliation, which is a process where we don't need to get 10 Republicans to join in the Senate. One way or another, we're gonna get that done, and it'll probably be a better result if there isn't a bipartisan deal. But I'd like, for the sake of credibility of the Congress, I'd like there to be something we can do on a bipartisan basis that helps people.
Oh, that's cute. Credibility in Congress in the same sentence. Okay. I mean, just because you have Republicans in it. Okay. All right.
I deserve that.
But as you said on Twitter, we've had record growth. People are back at work. Wages are up. The fact that Mitch is playing this dangerous game with our economy after everything American families have been through is appalling. And it is. I take this as a good sign. The headline is Senator Rand Paul, Representative John Yarmuth faced off in a charity golf match. Here's who won. Spoiler alert, John Yarmuth did.
Yeah. Go, Congressman.
Yeah, it was really nerve-wracking. I mean, the idea that I could lose to Rand Paul in a golf match was something that, I've never felt that much pressure on the golf course before.
Just having to spend time with him, you should get a medal of some sort. Okay.
It was tough. I really, leading up to the match, I was very anxious. I didn't know if I could be civil around him for 5 hours, but that came off all right.
Yeah.
We didn't talk politics.
Especially armed with so many different clubs. Okay. No. Of course you would never do that. That's me.
That's the neighbor. That's the neighbor.
You would ask a caddy which one to use. Okay, listen. Just Representative, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for taking time for us.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good to be with you.
Cheers with that good Kentucky bourbon.
Yeah. Absolutely.
All right.
Always.
All right.
Just add bourbon.
That's right.